Good morning and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Midtown Atlanta. Such is the nature of God that all it asks and all it wants is the opportunity to appear, and you are that opportunity, and so am I. And so it is. Whoever you are, whatever path brought you here today, please know that you are welcome and celebrated. We know who you are. You are an individual expression of the divine life, which we all live. Our life is an opportunity to be someone unique and wonderful. Whatever your ethnic background, religious affiliation, however you know yourself and describe yourself, your pronouns of gender identities, we are glad you are joining us today. You're welcome to be a part of this community, whatever way serves you. We are a strong, open, globally connected community centered on the clarity of principle through teaching, service, and practice. We create a safe and respectful environment that supports healthy spiritual growth. And that's our vision statement. So for a better understanding of who we are and what we teach, please listen to this Declaration of Principles, which was written by our founder, Ernest Holmes.
I believe
in one God,
one absolute power and first cause to all things.
I believe that this power is perfect love
and creates out of a desire to express love.
I believe all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience.
I believe in the unity of all life
and the immortality of the individual soul,
forever unfolding.
I believe
in the eternal goodness,
the eternal goodness of God,
the eternal loving kindness,
and the eternal givingness of God to all.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is.
So a practitioner is someone who has demonstrated the ability to use spiritual practice and spiritual laws to bring about great changes in their lives. They've also demonstrated they know how to bring about these changes in others when asked. Licensed by Centers for Spiritual Living, they are available to you as spiritual guidance counselors and support you in areas that you're looking for assistance in. And you can contact them through our website, cslmidtown.org. Today, we've got one of our amazing practitioners. She's one of our co-lead practitioners, and to share with us some good ideas and affirmative prayer called Spiritual Mind Treatment. Welcome this morning, Maya Fuller.
Greetings. Good morning. Good morning, CSL Midtown. Good morning, everybody. I am just pleased to be here with you. As you might remember, our Center for Spiritual Living's global theme for this year is a grand rising, and our theme for September is pieces into peace, with today's message being about waking up to oneness. We're going to be blessed with a wonderful message this morning by a speaker who's new to us. Her name is Reverend Annie Nelson, and her talk is going to be about finding peace and freedom through forgiveness. Now, as you might know, I'm here to get us warmed up around the topic of peace and then lead us in a spiritual mind treatment to ground us in the consciousness of peace. So I'm going to start off with a bold question for us spiritual folks. Are you at peace with everyone you meet? How about that person who cut you off in traffic yesterday? Or that coworker at the office who always finishes the coffee but never brews a new pot? If you're shaking your head, you're not alone. And that's okay, because today we're going to talk about how seeing the divine in everyone can transform those moments of irritation into opportunities for peace, where even the coffee finishers and the lane cutters in our experiences are seen through a lens of love. The truth is, when we walk through life feeling disconnected from others, we start seeing the world as broken, falling into pieces. But as Ernest Holmes, in his wisdom, taught us, peace is always at the center of our own soul. So the challenge isn't in fixing the world, it's in fixing our perspective. And when we do, even the pieces become peace. In Ephesians 4:4-6, the Apostle Paul is said to have written, "There is one body and one spirit, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all." Now, the scripture doesn't say one body except for your nosy neighbor, or one spirit unless you disagree with that person on social media. It says one. This means we're all a part of the same cosmic family, a family where even those quirky relatives that get on your last nerve are connected to the same divine source. We are all in this together. So why does it sometimes feel like we're disconnected? Well, it's because we're stuck in what CSL is calling the illusion of otherness. It's like those optical illusions where you stare at the picture and you see either a duck or a rabbit or a young, beautiful woman or an older, wrinkled woman. Except in life, instead of seeing a duck or a rabbit or a young woman or an older woman, we are seeing me and them. And let's be honest, most of us see a lot of them. But the truth is, this illusion of separation is exactly that, an illusion. As Ernest Holmes teaches, we are all individualizations of the one spirit. It's like we're all different radio stations playing different songs, but we're tuned into the same divine frequency. And this teaching that CSL teaches offers that when we recognize this, the world can stop being a battlefield of differences and become a celebration of diversity. This topic reminds me of a time when I was standing in line at a grocery store, and there was this man ahead of me, clearly in a hurry, tapping his foot, sighing loudly, glancing at his watch every 10 seconds. And I noticed myself being critical of what I was calling his rude, childish behavior. But then I thought, I wonder if I ever act like that. Or in what circumstances might I be acting like that or want to act like that? So I thought maybe he's not just impatient. Maybe he's rushing to pick up his sick child at school. Sometimes life throws us last-minute curveballs, and he could be dealing with one right now. Or maybe he's late for a job interview that could change everything for him. He could be experiencing the nerves that come with trying to make a big life shift. So when I framed it that way, my whole attitude was able to shift. Instead of being annoyed, I felt compassion. I wasn't looking at an impatient man. I was seeing another expression of God who I can identify with, who was just trying to get through his day. Let's face it, life is full of moments that test our ability to be peaceful. Whether it's that moment when your Wi-Fi stops working right in the middle of an important Zoom call, or when you can't get off mute like I did last time I did this talk, and your whole talk goes away, or when you've been waiting in line forever for someone to grab the last, and then someone just comes in and swoops in and grabs that last parking space. But here's the thing. Those moments are just part of life's comedy. And when we can laugh at ourselves and remember that we're all connected, we can move from a place of defensiveness to a place of compassion. And Jesus had a lot to say about this too. In Matthew 5:9, he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God." Now we know we're all children of God, but what is a peacemaker? It's someone who knows that no matter what is happening, there's only God. There's only one. There's only oneness. And we are all on the same. All these ideas, these expressions, these manifestations that seem like others, we're all on the same team. Peacemakers don't see us versus them. They see oneness. So the next time you find yourself getting worked up over something or someone, try this affirmation that CSL has offered for us for this as the affirmation for the day. The divine in me recognizes and honors the divine in you. Say it to yourself and watch how it can transform the moment. You might even find yourself smiling at the absurdity of it all, because let's be honest, life can be pretty absurd sometimes, but that is part of its charm. So my friends, as we walk through this week, let's practice waking up to the oneness. Let's remember that no matter how many pieces we see around us, peace is always available within us. So let us move into a spiritual mind treatment to treat our minds to know the truth about this. I know that there is one presence, one power, one divine source that is the essence of all life. This presence is the foundation of love, peace, and harmony. It flows through all creation, connecting everything in perfect unity. This one spirit is in all things, including me and everyone around me. I recognize that this same divine presence flows through every person, every situation, and every moment of my life. I affirm that I am one with this divine oneness. I am connected to all life, and I honor this truth within myself and in others. As I recognize the divine within me, I also see it in every person I meet, knowing that we are all individual expressions of the same spirit. There is no separation, only unity. I release any sense of division, any belief in otherness, and I open my heart to the truth of oneness. I give thanks for this deeper understanding of oneness and for the peace that flows through my life right now and forever. I'm grateful for the laughter, the love, and harmony that come with this awareness, knowing that as I continue to wake up to oneness, I experience more peace and joy in every moment. I now release this word into the perfect law, trusting that it is already done, manifesting fully in my life and in the world. And so it is.
It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning. Reverend Annie Nelson is an ordained interfaith minister with a teaching and evolving prayer ministry. She offers spiritual counseling and coaching that address real-life challenges. She's also a board-certified master hypnotherapist and a certified life coach with decades of experience in the behavioral sciences, management, and public service. Her formal education and training and her natural gifts of compassion, discernment, and wisdom are evident in her ministry, where she offers a body, mind, and spirit approach to serving. Reverend Annie transmits incredible energy and wisdom, serving others through her spiritual gifts of compassion and from life experiences. Her federal career included 30 plus years in supervisory management and executive leadership positions, while simultaneously serving as a military officer in the Army National Guard. As a retired executive and military officer, she continues to live forward, now choosing a more natural spiritual path of service, which led to her ministry. Reverend Annie is a member in good standing of the Alliance of Divine Love Interfaith Ministry, the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapy, and the International Association of Counselors and Therapists. Reverend Annie is also a board member of the Unity Church of Raleigh. With that, it's all yours, Reverend Annie.
Thank you very much. May peace be with you this Sunday morning. And I thank the Center for Spiritual Living Midtown for this invitation to share my thoughts with you here today. And what a beautiful song on forgiveness. Thank you guys for that. I really love that. Okay. So I start with a thank you, God, for the spiritual journey that brings us together as kindred spirits and spiritual seekers of truth, right? And so it is. Let me begin with a spiritual inspiration from the Bible. It's one of my favorites that fits perfectly for what I'm talking about here today. And it's from Matthew 18, 21 through 22. It says, Then Peter came to him and asked, Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times? And Jesus replied, No, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. And to me, we're being asked to forgive without limitations. And I found adopting an attitude of forgiveness goes a long way in helping make the path to healing a more viable option. For healing past transgressions takes courage, faith, and lots of practice. My mother used to say, prayers are good, honey, but at some point you have to get up off your knees and do something. And for me, that doing something has always been a practice that supports a shift in my thinking about what I was doing and how I was doing it. You know, as I was preparing my talk for today, I received my September edition of Signs of Mind magazine. And I saw that this month's daily guides start with the quote, Forgiveness says you are given another chance to make a new beginning. That quote is from Bishop Desmond Tutu, and it was right on time. For as I read that, it reminded me that our spiritual teachings also talks about how change and new beginnings are a critical step on the path of self-actualization. That journey of becoming, evolving to our best self, living our highest good. And as with anything else, our evolution is helped along with practice. Whether you're practicing to become physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually stronger, everything you do gets better with practice. And I hope after my talk today, you will consider joining me in adopting a practice of forgiveness. For life gives us many opportunities to forgive ourselves and others. So let's not squander this gift. Taking on an attitude of forgiveness opens our hearts to experience the connection to the divine within. God, the good. Even our thought patterns are a product of practice. And that's where I'm going to start today, with looking at how powerful our racing thoughts, our beliefs, our thinking is to the quality of our lives. You know, I liked how practitioner Maya told us a little story about her standing in line. That was a good example of how she actually paid attention to her thoughts, those racing thoughts that was going on, and made a conscious decision to shift into her divinity, right? So a healing practice of forgiveness can help us in acquiring this peaceful existence, which is not only desirable, but possible. And throughout my talk today, I have sprinkled little nuggets, you know, those sacred words of wisdom from Signs of Mind articles, words that have inspired me, and I hope that they inspire you as well. So let me start with saying that in my ministry, I see and hear so much of what I believe to be self-inflicted suffering. Self-inflicted because the only thing we really have control over is our thoughts. And when our thoughts are out of control, when our thinking has been hijacked with fear-based thoughts, then it's no wonder we feel that our lives are out of control. Whether you're aware of it or not, on a cellular level, your thoughts impact your health and well-being. They are dictating your actions, reactions, and responses to circumstances and situations occurring in your life. So let's take a moment and ask ourselves, how can I experience peace in this moment, in this present time, where I'm thinking about how to react or respond to a particular situation or event? How can I escape the dark emotions that seemingly come out of nowhere, creating sadness, worry, fear? How can I calm the chaos of my thoughts? I say it's a choice, and it's also that we must take responsibility of our thought patterns that drive pain, worry, anger, dis-ease, fear, all arising in us from what? Fear-based thoughts. You know, I love the Star Wars movie character Yoda, and a famous quote from him that still resonates with me to this day is, "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering." For me, this wisdom from him reminds me that I must continually take a personal inventory of where my thoughts are going, particularly those fear-based thoughts that can inform your life into a downward spiral of despair, anger, addiction, pain, and othering. And when I pause and really think about it, I realize it's all a matter of choice. Yes, choice. We're making choices throughout our day. Every moment in time, we're making choices, be it big choices like, a major purchase of a house or a car, or leave a relationship or not, or maybe small choices like, do I turn left or right, or do I buy this chocolate candy, whatever. Wherever we are always making choices. And many times we're doing it unconsciously. We're on autopilot, doing things out of habit, programming, just not being mindful of consequences to ourselves, our health, and our well-being. So we experience bad things in life. We all do. I remember the Dr. Seuss story, right, where he once advised, when something bad happens, we have three choices. You either let it define you, you let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you. And I encourage you to take the path to be strengthened, to do better, be better, to choose wisely from the bad things that happen in life. Gain the strength, be strong, courageous, live forward, grounded in faith, and a practice of forgiveness as you continue to evolve to your best and highest good, right? And we do this not just for ourselves, we do it for all concerned, not just for our loved ones and our friends, but all mankind, for we are one in spirit, as Maya reminded us, right? So we must remember the golden rule: what we do to others, we do to ourselves. Oneness. So as you look at the pieces in peace, which is the theme for this month in Signs of Mind, I say you must take a careful look at your thoughts patterns, your thought pattern, for it becomes difficult to experience or express any level of peace or recovery from bad choices when your thoughts are clouded with past mistakes, hurts, anger, unforgiveness, fear. The writer-teacher Richard Rohr has a podcast, and in one of his series, he dwelled very deeply into this thing called thought and how we think. And these were his words: "We do not think ourselves into a new way of living. We live ourselves into a new way of thinking." Now, I found that to be a pretty deep and insightful message. And it made me think about how living my life influences my thinking. And while it's a powerful insight to contemplate, for me, in the immediate, it only reinforced how connected my life experiences are to my thought patterns. Because thinking comes from our thoughts, right? So I'm living out my thought pattern. All thoughts held in mind produces after its kind. Okay, makes sense. Still with me? So let's take a deeper dive into thoughts versus thinking and try to connect the dots, if you will. Thoughts are defined as self-rising, right? They can appear out of nowhere, and they typically trigger a story linked to an emotion. So thoughts are self-rising, while thinking is a choice. Think about that, right? So random thoughts drive our emotions, which drives our thinking, which dictates our reactions or responses in any given situation or circumstances. So if we remember that thoughts are self-rising and thinking is a choice, then we can look at taking responsibility for our thoughts. In other words, we can try to get them under control. Because if our thinking is being held captive to fear-based thoughts, we get to experience the emotional chaos of those negative energies that come with fear. Right? Fear, like love, is an intrinsic part of our nature. It's there for us to tap into when needed. So fear is not a bad thing when used properly. But love and fear cannot coexist. A fear response is meant to save us from life-threatening situations. It is not meant to become a belief system that we live from. Living in constant fear, in a constant state of fear, is harmful emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So we must be willing to look at our thought patterns and how it's impacting our lives. I love that saying, where our thoughts go, so goes our lives, our reality. It's imperative that we do the healing work to free ourselves from fear-based thoughts. And make no mistake, all fear-based thoughts are a form of bondage because they block your potential for good. It blocks your sense of well-being, your inner peace. It limits your perception relative to the infinite possibilities that await your awareness. Simply put, fear-based thoughts are shackles that hold you back from your best and highest good. So let's take a breather and center ourselves in prayer, meditation, whatever spiritual practice works for you. I like the practice of forgiveness, for it has proven to bring emotional awareness and freedom to my thought patterns. I recently read in Science of Mind that in 1937, over 80 years ago, Ernest Holmes gave a talk about the spiritual meaning of freedom. And the article captured the essence of his talk, highlighting how, these are his words, throughout the ages, our minds seem to be in constant fear of humankind relative to the soul. How we, human beings, are constantly seeking to get out of our ego thinking and live from a higher consciousness of our good. He goes on to say, we continue to exchange one image of bondage for another in our efforts to be free. Free from what, you ask? Free from the shackles of fear-based thoughts, those thoughts of lack, superstition, uncertainty, pain, dis-ease, poverty, anger, resentment, suffering, othering. We cannot outsource our happiness, folks, because happiness, like peace and joy, comes from within. So we must do the work. And the spiritual practices are on the table of choice. This freedom Hum talks about is spiritual freedom, free to experience that peace and harmony that dwells from within out. And one of the most powerful tools to help us experience this spiritual freedom is forgiveness. Yes, I sound like a broken record, but there it is, right? A practice of forgiveness is hard work, but it's necessary to our overall health, well-being, and the expansion of our soul. You can't forgive others and not forgive yourself. That's replacing one type of bondage for another. Ernest Holmes also says all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. And in the book, Beyond Codependency, there's a quote that I like to share with you. It said, this is an anonymous person speaking, that said, she or he said, some of my feelings have been stored so long, they have freezer burn. Wow. Now, while that may sound funny or make you smile, it's not a good place to be. for it's a cesspool of unresolved issues that person is acknowledging. So while the peace and spiritual freedom is possible, it takes work. And if we can get control over our thoughts, maybe we can stop this obsessive focus on what's wrong and, what I might be doing wrong, real or imagined, and focus more on what's right, the good that's there for the asking. Then maybe we can send more of these good thoughts into the collective consciousness. And that's a good thing for all. I say yes. As spiritual seekers, we believe everything manifests starts in mind. All thoughts held in mind produces after its kind. Is that not one of our mantras? Again, all thoughts held in mind produces after its kind. So if we truly desire to stop being held hostage to fear-based thoughts, we must be mindful of them and start a practice that allows us to see and act on what you are hopeful for instead of what you are against. A practice that helps you master your thoughts so that you're no longer immersed in negativity. A practice that allows you to change the energy in yourself, which in turn changes the energy in your environment from negative to positive. I believe in affirmative prayer. So maybe you create a mantra or a prayer practice affirming that you are healed from all fear-based thoughts. Taking steps to address any long-held belief that no longer serves you and the highest good puts you on the path of healing, on the path to peace. And any work involved in any healing process becomes more viable when you have an attitude of forgiveness. We are here to evolve, so let's do the work. For me, gratitude and forgiveness go hand in hand, and I've experienced, seen, and learned that almost all healing starts with forgiveness. There's another good quote from Richard Ward. It says, in forgiveness, we live out the true self and not the tiny self that's always offended and complaining. Without forgiveness, nothing new happens, and we remain frozen in a small past. I don't think any of us want that. So again, I invite you to join me in this forgiveness practice and let go and let God. The great Martin Luther King Jr. once said, forgiveness is a constant attitude, not just an occasional act. And that's what I'm inviting you to think about. We are in this human journey to learn, to grow, to evolve, and we've been blessed with the gift of choice. Choice is to get a better understanding of how our thoughts impact our thinking. Choice is to use the spiritual tool of forgiveness to heal ourselves and others. Choice is to control those dark thoughts whenever they arise and make the better choice to see the good, to allow your light to shine through. And the good news is it's never too late. Never too late to pray, to be healed from fear-based thoughts. Never too late to ask for the peace that comes from being centered in the knowing that divine order is at play here. Never too late to learn a new way of thinking that aligns you with the divine within. Never too late to forgive or be forgiven. And I can attest to the fact that an attitude of forgiveness is valuable, for it can inform all aspects of your life for the better. Years ago, I set an intention to have an attitude of forgiveness. And it seems that at every opportunity, or maybe I should say, there were many opportunities that came my way to practice it. Yeah. Whether it was with family, friends, or just reflecting on my past, I found so many opportunities to heal with the practice of forgiveness. And it took practice. And living into my strength and successes gave me insights about my weaknesses, failures, and my fears. For me, having a practice of forgiveness taught me that When I made the choice to be a single parent, to raise a boy without his father present, I've learned to ask for forgiveness for not allowing him to have a voice, for thinking I had to be in control, so afraid of failure. What I've learned is to ask for forgiveness for not being a good listener, pretending I knew everything, that I had all the answers. What I've learned is to ask for forgiveness for the mistakes I made and not sharing the process when correcting my mistakes, so that my son would have a better sense of how to deal with problems and not expect to be perfect. What I've learned is to ask for forgiveness for all the words spoken in anger, not considering his feelings in the situation. What I've learned is that my life challenges were there for me to grow from, not to get stuck in, not to allow my mistakes to define who I am. These and all of my life lessons, the good and the bad, push me into a new way of thinking. So I'm grateful. And as I continue to walk this path of being me, I stand strong and witness the power of an attitude of forgiveness. I can honestly say I'm getting better at trusting the flow of life. And I'm truly, truly grateful for the awareness of the gift of forgiveness. I also remember reading a story about a fighter pilot that flew bomber planes during the Vietnam War. And he had seen a magazine story on the war. And on the cover of the magazine was a picture of a little girl with an expression of unimaginable terror in her eyes. Her clothes burned off and her body scorched by napalm. In an interview with Associated Press reporter, the pilot said the guilt over the bombing raid had become a lonely torment and a recurring nightmare for him. And some 22 years later, while attending a Veterans Day observance in Washington, D.C., that same pilot actually met the little girl that was pictured on the cover, the girl who had experienced the tragedy of war. And he approached her and asked her for forgiveness. And she forgave him. How beautiful is that? Can you imagine the emotional healing that occurred in that moment? I could feel it just from reading the article. I also remember seeing a 2020 interview with the Holocaust survivors, and upon being asked, how can you forgive those who committed such an atrocious act? One of the survivors responded that, my forgiveness does not mean that I forget. But forgiveness for me is the act of self-liberation, self-empowerment, and self-healing. Now, I call that wisdom. For she did not want to carry that baggage of fear, hate, and anger in her heart any longer. So both of these stories are living examples of healing power of forgiveness, right? And it should wake us up to summon the courage to be more forgiving, to have more compassion, and do the work to heal all fear-based thoughts. I believe every act of forgiveness impacts the universal consciousness, and that we need. So living with an attitude of forgiveness can help us navigate these turbulent times we're in. And I invite you to ask yourself, do you really want to continue to be shackled to past events that bind you to negative emotions that impact your wholeness and well-being? I know I sound like a broken record, but we need to connect the dots. Thoughts in mind produces after its kind. For many years, relative studies have warned us of the dangers of living in a constant state of fear, how it drains our energy on many levels. Let's look at some of the things that they say drain our energy. Fear, news, stress, clutter, alcohol, fast food, self-criticism, overworking, lack of a social network, negative thinking, dwelling on the past. What were the things that they said, these studies said, that gives us energy? Learning new things, simplifying our lives, healthy food, socializing, meditation, movement, sunlight, nature, music, sleep, rest, gratitude, positive thinking, forgiveness. So let's choose wisely, folks. And like choosing which energy source you want to live with, forgiveness too is a choice. It's a decision to stop suffering. It's a decision to let go of anger, shame, resentment, and other emotions associated with fear-based thoughts. Studies also have shown both forgiveness and being forgiven brings a personal level of well-being to our mental and physical health. There's no downside on the path of forgiveness. And both forgiving and being forgiven are important. But we must do the work, starting with self-forgiveness. Let's unburden ourselves through whatever spiritual practice we choose to do, whether it's journaling, counseling, praying, meditation, whatever. Let's release the drama, the shame, the guilt, the pain, and get control of our thoughts. And let's do it without judgment or being critical of ourselves. It's a practice of healing. So you don't want to replace one type of bondage for another. Freedom comes through forgiveness. So again, I invite you to join me in this healing process, right? Let's experience the shift in consciousness to the spiritual freedom and peace we so deserve and desire. And the psalm also said, if our nature is one, the universe cannot be divided against itself. And we must get back to this unity of oneness to find the meaning of freedom. And this cannot be done without the attribute of forgiveness. So, as I take a deep breath and relax, I say, join me in adopting an attitude of forgiveness. So I'm now going to ask you to close your eyes and let me lead you in prayer. Let my words be your words. As I take a few deep breaths, I relax and I clear my mind of the busy thoughts of yesterday and tomorrow. On each breath, I breathe in the synergy of love. And as I surrender human judgment to divine discernment, my faith is strengthened. My consciousness is pure. My presence is peaceful. I understand that I heal as I forgive. And forgiving another and myself is a healing and freeing practice. A process that I enter into by choice with courage, strength, and faith. I accept what is, let go of what was, and believe in what will be. I understand that all change starts with self. And under grace and in perfect ways, I now release all my fear-based thoughts as I step into my future, cleansed and ready to live forward. I am blessed, and I am a blessing to all. And so it is. Namaste.
Thank you, Reverend Annie. Awesome talk this morning. Forgiveness, something we all need to do. So, leading us into the next phase of where we're at. If you appreciated this talk today and the talks that we all have, I implore you to donate to the Center for Spiritual Living Midtown. You can donate at www.cslmidtown.org/donate. Click on the QR code if you're seeing it on the screen. And here's our affirmation of prosperity. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow. and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. And we got a few announcements this morning. I've got Reverend James Peake next week with Om Shanti Om, which should be very interesting. The discussion group, which we've got every Sunday at 10 a.m. before the service, so you can join that on the Zoom link. If you go to the cslmidtown.org website, it will take you to the link for the Zoom for that discussion group. They're going through the Science of Mind textbook all the way through. So as long as it takes to go through that, you can join on that, have that discussion. And as a reminder, in October, if you're going to join us in person, it's this second Sunday of the month, not the first. So the second Sunday of the month for our in-person on October. I want to thank Maya this morning for being our practitioner today. And if you want to join us for discussion with Reverend Annie, join us on the Zoom link as well. Go to cslmidtown.org, scroll down to the Zoom link, click on the Zoom link, and get the little code to get the passcode to get into that meeting. Now it's time for our affirmation of life. I leave this place now knowing something better than I knew before. I go forth into the world with a heart full of love and a mind full of good sense. I look at the world in a greater way, knowing that I have within me everything I need to create the life I desire. I give thanks for this understanding, and I am grateful for the spirit of life that lives through me. So it is. We'll see you next week.